Howdy, Tribe. This week's installment of Minimalist Monday is going to be a little bit of a throwback. You might remember a few months ago I did an installment where I discussed the underappreciated shovel. And of course in that episode I discussed about how much I absolutely have fallen in love with this cold steel shovel. However, of course, I also mentioned that due to its size and weight, it really doesn't really make a good minimalist shovel for obvious reasons. That being said, I had also shown you guys the Tint Labs Deuce of Spades, and as far as minimalism goes, this is about as light as it gets. This one is 17 grams or 0.6 ounces. So this one definitely does classify as a true minimalist shovel. However, I have had some concerns with this because it is very, very, very thin material. I mean, you can see there, I'm squeezing it, and you can probably just see it flexing in my hand. And so I worry about, using it for any type of heavy digging that is really just not going to be inadequate. And so in that installment of Minimalist Monday, I had implored to you guys, or I reached out and tried to see if any of you all could recommend a shovel to me that you are aware of that kind of fit the bill a little bit better than the cold steel shovel or this Deuce of Spades. Something that split the difference, could do a little bit more heavy work, but still wasn't so big and bulky that it ultimately weighed my pack down and took up room. Interestingly enough, we just received a comment on our YouTube video from one of our followers who had a really interesting suggestion that I had never heard. And what he suggested doing is, instead of bothering to carry a shovel at all, what he usually does is, since he will always have his saw with him, I of course here, and as I've already mentioned, carry a Baco Laplander, which is a great little pocket saw. So if he always has his saw, something similar to what you have here, what he suggests doing is actually sawing off a medium-sized branch and then on one end cutting it diagonally and actually using that as a spade and a shovel. And as simple as that idea is, I had never even heard of it. It never even occurred to me. But because I will always have my saw with me, if it works, it does in fact negate the need for me to carry this little shovel. Now, even though it isn't a lot of weight, if it isn't that useful to me, it really isn't doing me that much good anyways. So, in today's installment, what I'm going to do is go ahead and chop a branch, and I'd like to do a side-by-side comparison, maybe 30 seconds of digging with this guy and 30 seconds of digging with my handmade shovel, and just see what works better. If this system that he suggested actually is as effective as I imagine it probably will be, it could be a really good solution to my minimalist shovel issue. So, without wasting any more time, let's dive right on in and see what kind of trouble we can get ourselves into today. Let's take a look.
All right, go.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to now try to saw it diagonally down that way. Okay, so there is my makeshift shovel. As you can see, I've cut the piece of wood diagonally there, and I'm going to use that as my digging end. Let's go test it out, huh? Okay, so I have cut my makeshift shovel here, and the only way to test these guys is just to put them to the dirt, really. I'm going to do a 30-second comparison test. So each shovel, I'm going to dig as hard as I can for 30 seconds. And then by the time I'm all said and done, we're going to take a look at both those holes and actually see which one was able to do a better job digging. First off, I'm going to try the Tint Lab Deuce of Spades. All right, so here we go. 30 seconds. Okay, 30 seconds. Now, 30 seconds with this one. Okay. So, come over here. Come take a look at this. So, hole on this side with the Tint Lab Deuce of Spades. Hole on this side with the stick. All right, well, after 30 seconds of digging with each one of these tools, I gotta be honest, I am surprisingly impressed with the effectiveness of stick. The Tint Lab Deuce of Spades did do an excellent job. Actually, it beat my expectations here, because I was kind of thinking that it was going to be a little bit too flimsy and too fragile to really do any damage. But what I did find is, because it has such a sharp edge, you really can create a sharp cutout of a hole, create an entire nugget, and then pop it out in that regard. And so working it that way, you can do some pretty effective digging. That being said, when you put a lot of muscle into this thing, it's so sharp. Even through gloves, you can really feel it working into your hands. And so, you know, for that reason, I find it to be very limited. If you need to dig a very small hole for the purpose of dropping a deuce, then yes, this works. But that being said, I really am impressed with the versatility of this simple concept here. The head itself, no, maybe is not as effective as a standard shovel, although that being said, I could conceivably cut a wider branch and maybe spend a little bit more time and actually make a broader flat head here that could be used to a greater effect. But because you're cutting your own stick here, what I really like about this is you get an exceptionally large amount of leverage, and you can really, there really are no limitations to this. I mean, I happen to cut, I don't know, a 2.5 foot piece of wood here, but you conceivably could make a full-size shovel and be standing and digging even if you wanted to. And as you can see here, after 30 seconds of digging, I mean, I made it about that deep into the ground. With the Tint Lab here, made it about that deep, you know, so overall pretty comparable, maybe a little bit deeper with this guy. Of course, I was also putting a lot of muscle in it because I can, but you know, the fact that I can essentially achieve the same effect with these two different tools, I don't know, I really don't see much reason of carrying this anymore, considering I know I'm going to be carrying my Laplander with me and I can always saw a piece of wood and make a shovel like this. If that's the maximum type of hole I was going to need to be digging, I can easily do that with a stick. I really appreciate our YouTube follower who commented with this suggestion, because I had never heard of this idea, and it's so incredibly simple. It's just kind of perfected minimalism. So I'm really impressed with the concept. I definitely see a lot of potential for this to be used to great advantage in the bush, and also simultaneously keep your pack weight down. So I think that about does it for this installment of Minimalist Monday. Thanks for watching, and you guys stay safe out there. Have a great week.